this week has just, this month, it's not even a week, has just been so huge. And I was making a giant M&M, but life is messy. Stuff happens, and I feel like I can't put this video up without filling you in with all the crazy stuff that has gone on over the last few weeks. So thank you for all of you who have been following the channel and seeing our comments on the videos we put up over the last couple of weeks. Thank you for all your support and your prayers. We really appreciate that. So basically, where to begin? At the beginning, my eldest son had an operation booked in that's been booked in for a long time. Not complicated. It was about a week's stay in hospital, and he came through that so well, swimmingly well. He got out after 5 days. Everyone was saying he was doing amazingly. He had less pain than anticipated. It was really, really good. And then we came home next morning. He woke up in intense pain, started vomiting and swelling, and by the next night he had fevers of 39, and we brought him back in, and it turns out he had a hospital-acquired infection with a bacteria which is resistant to most of your standard antibiotics. So they had antibiotics they knew that it should respond to, but the next week and a half, 2 weeks, it's all blurred. All the days are blurred. We're just filled with complication after complication and bleeds, and it was just a mess. Like, at the lowest point, I was sitting outside the surgery. The surgeon came out halfway through. I'm not going to cry. Okay, I'm good. I can do this. Okay, surgeon came out. So yeah, the lowest point was when he had to have a second surgery to drain all the internal bleeds. His lung was infected with the bacteria. They were testing during surgery whether his heart was infected. They weren't sure whether it was or wasn't. The surgeon came out halfway through to say the anaesthetist was concerned about him. Didn't think he was doing well during the operation, and they might have to take him up to the intensive care ward afterwards, depending how he tracked in recovery. So I had another 2-hour wait after that before I could see him and hold his hand and know that he was okay. And that was probably the lowest point for me. Probably not his lowest point. He could tell you stories of intense pain and stuff that's gone on that's just been huge. But he's a trooper. He's so determined and so strong, and in recovery he pulled through well enough that we could go back to the ward, and so that's where he's been since, on really strong antibiotics, waiting every day. And we feel like every day they say he needs to be here for at least a week, and the weeks are not becoming days. So, but he is progressing.
Hey, it's been a long time in hospital, but I'm slowly getting better, and I should be home within not too long.
By the time this goes up, I truly hope that we're back home. But for the moment, I've just been in here with him, and Dave's at home with the other 2 boys, doing a champion of a job looking after them. And thank you to everyone who's dropped meals over for Dave and the boys and supported them while I've been in here with James. I really thank you. Thank you. So that's, yeah, and before all this started, I started making a giant M&M. So I'll show you how to do that now, and then I'll come back and tell you what we're going to do with it. To make the hard shell, I'm going to use pastelage, and for that we need icing sugar, glucose syrup, water, gelatin, and a pinch of cream of tartar. And all those recipe quantities will be on the howtocookThat.net website, and there's a link to that below. Take your gelatin and tip it into the water and immediately stir that around. The water needs to be cold, not hot. Once you have stirred it all in, you want to leave that to absorb all the water. After a few minutes, tip that into a larger bowl and then add the glucose syrup on top. Then you want to heat that in the microwave until it's melted. You need the bigger bowl when you heat it because the gelatin bubbles up when you heat it up. Place the icing sugar and that cream of tartar into the bowl of an electric mixer, turn it on and add in the hot gelatin mixture. Now you can mix this by hand if you don't have an electric mixer, it just might take you a little while. Once it comes away from the sides and forms a ball, tip it out onto the counter and quickly knead it just to make sure it's smooth. Now this stuff dries out fairly fast, so as soon as it's ready, put it into an airtight plastic bag until you're about to use it. Next, you want 2 bowls that when you put them together, they create a shape that's a bit like an M&M shape. Grab your bowls and give them both a spray with cooking oil and then dust them with a generous amount of corn flour. Now you just use your hand to gently rub it so that you have a smooth, even, thin layer of corn flour all over your bowl without any clumps or gaps. Roll out the pastelage and check that it's big enough to fit the size of your bowl, and then spray the top with a thin layer of cooking oil just to stop it sticking to itself. Now use your rolling pin to lift it up and place it over the bowl. Now quickly just lift and lower it to get rid of any creases so that you line the bowl smoothly, just like you would if you were lining a pie dish with pastry. Then you want to cut around the outside with a knife and leave that for about a week to dry out and set hard. James is going to be in the hospital for a week, so I'll just leave this here on the counter and come back to it then. 1 week later and James is home from his operation and doing really, really well, so I'm filming this while he's playing PlayStation with Matt. The shape of this outside shell is a little bit flatter than I wanted. Probably needed a slightly rounder bowl, but this will be fine. I'll pop that back into the bowl for support and fill it up with melted chocolate. That is a lot of chocolate. I'm going to have to leave that to set overnight. Look at that. Half an M&M. Now I'm going to slightly overfill the second half so we don't have any gaps inside our M&M, and then I'm just going to flip the first full half and place it on top. This is going to get a little bit messy. There we go. It is important that you try and line the two halves up straight, because once it's set it's not going to move anymore. I also have Jed sitting in here with me reading. He's getting so good.
Navigate.
That's a very big word. Once that is set, you can clean up any of the chocolate that's on the pastelage. Just scrape it off first, and then once you've got most of it, just use some warm paper towel to get the last bits off. And then you can tip your M&M shape out of the bowl. Now that looks pretty good, but I'm not happy with the way the shape is pointy around the edge. The good thing about pastelage is that it's hard enough that you can scrape bits off it. So I'm going to use a knife and use that just to shave it back and flatten that around the edge. If you've got a perfect bowl shape for this, you might not need to do this, but if you're like me and the bowl is not quite right, then you can just give it a little bit of a carve to get it how you want it. Once you're happy, dampen the edge and put a really thin layer of pastelage over the chocolate that you can see. Then use a small bit of baking paper to smooth it down onto the existing shell. Place the whole thing into a box just to protect your counter. Cut out an M and add that on top, and then spray it using food colour that's in an aerosol can. You can buy these from most cake decorating stores. Now I'm running out of this colour. I've used it for something else before, so I'm going to have to get some more in the morning to do the other side. And when I'm looking under the M here, I can see some of the spray has gone underneath. So when you make this, I'd suggest using contact or thick sticky tape sort of thing, so that when you put it on, no spray can get under there. If you do have this problem that I've got though, you can just clean it up using a wet paintbrush. You can just basically wash off the blue food colouring from where it's not supposed to be. Now my plan was to go buy more of this spray and finish it in the morning, but I didn't know that I'd be driving James to the hospital at 3:30 in the morning with a fever, and that's where we'd be staying for the next few weeks. As I told you the story at the start, it has been really rough and crazy. So fast forward several weeks and that gets you to today. So now that James is a little bit better, I'm still staying here with him because he still needs help with different stuff, so I'm here with him. And he's well enough now that I can leave the room for a little while. So Dave has bought in the M&M for me and the blue spray, because I ordered another can of that online. So my plan is to finish that here at the hospital and finish making the giant M&M for you. Cannot guarantee the film quality, so I might just have to film it on my iPhone. But yeah, it's been a journey. I'm forever going to remember this giant M&M as being intertwined in this journey, so now you can too. But if you want to make one of these for your friends, they will make a great gift, and I think we'll probably give it to someone at the hospital who's been helpful through James's journey of recovery.
I could give it to who I want, so I said I would give it to you.
Oh, thank you.
You were there through some of the worst nights. So.
Yeah, some pretty hairy times. Oh my god, that's amazing. I love it. Thank you so much.